Okay, all right, so we're going to get started again.
Oh, we're back.
We're back.
We're public still?
We're
back to me.
So do we want to stick with the first issue at hand and get some guidance on that, and then move from there?
Probably, because that will determine whether we're taping this or not.
All right. So we had a lengthy discussion about what we do with the videotaped interviews that we've had so far, as well as the deliberations. They've all been open to the public. And there's been feelings on the committee on both sides on what we do from there. So we ended it with, why don't we wait till you guys get here, where you guys can guide us from your experience and so forth. So is that clear enough, or do you want to add more? That works.
Well, whether they should be, they've been taped, whether they should air or not air.
Whether some should
Commission to
air,
air.
some should not, you know,
Partial,
whether
full.
the 2 or 3 moving forward should air. I think it's just airing or not.
Do we have a right to air those interviews? Is there any sign-off? Would we be trouble putting them on YouTube or whatever YouTube?
Well, first of all, good evening. It's nice to see you.
Right into business here. It's 8:45.
What's this good evening stuff? It's like good night.
Let me preface my remarks by saying I'm not an attorney, so all I'm dealing with is my own perspective and what I know from experience. In thinking it through, my thinking would be as follows. It was a public meeting. It was videotaped with public equipment, yes? It belongs to the public. And therefore, it would seem to me that there's not a reason not to consider it public and therefore air it as you choose. And my guess is that if someone were to request it, it would be considered public anyway. That would be my view.
And they don't have to sign a release. They knew it was a public interview.
Yeah. Now, we're not attorneys. I don't know all the ins and outs, but it would just seem to me that it's a public meeting, public meetings. I mean, if someone were here and were taping your meeting, they could do what they wanted with their tape. I mean, it's their tape. They can tape your meeting as long as it doesn't interfere with your proceedings, is my understanding. So,
You
if
do
it's
this quite a bit. Is this a practice that
Oh, it's
most
common. Oh,
districts
yeah.
do, that they do?
not all districts,
Utilize
but it's
it.
very common.
Right.
You could go on the internet. Yeah.
They show them.
Yeah. You see it on the internet all the time. Yeah.
And is the
you could
tendency
probably-
that they play all of them, or some of them, or we're just struggling a little bit with the scope of this?
Well, I think it's all public. I mean, it's all part of the process. It's all part of what all part of your activities. If it were me, I would consider that something that would be helpful in terms of the public's understanding of what you've done. Would be my personal view.
Okay. Any other questions? So we'll go with a motion and a second, and then we'll vote.
I move that we place the entire video library, if you want to call it, make it available to the public.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like clarification on that. What does that mean?
Be available.
Make it available.
All, well, then we post it on our YouTube channel, and I don't know whether, I would seek guidance, do we run them on the local cable, or do we just put it on the YouTube?
We could? I mean, we'd have to.
I would say both. It's made available to the public access channels in each town, and also published online.
You're saying all 6?
Yep, all 6
That's what
and the
my
And
deliberation.
the deliberation. And the deliberation.
So if we want to amend that motion, or do we vote? Do
No,
we
we
vote
would
on it,
amend
and, I mean, how do we get in there of airing just the ones we move forward
Then you would amend that main motion.
before we vote?
So the main motion now is to put them all out there, and it's been seconded. So if you want to make an amendment, you'd amend the main motion, and then
And then
vote on
we
the amendment,
vote to amend.
and then we would take a vote on whatever the main motion was.
So I'd like to make a motion to amend that motion to air the candidates that we do move forward and leave the rest of them as available if someone requests them.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second. So is this amendment motion made and seconded? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, so we're going to vote on the amendment, okay, to amend and only show the ones moving forward, and people can access the ones in entirety of the others, okay? So we're going to do a roll call vote for both of these. So if you're in favor of that, we'll start with Kathy. Favor of the amendment, of just moving the two or finalists forward and showing those in the deliberation, correct?
Of the amendment.
Right,
Yeah.
within the amendment, only to show the candidates that we're moving forward on, as well as the deliberation.
Yes.
I vote no on the amendment.
No on the amendment.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
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 Yes.
So that was 3 noes, so the amended motion does not pass.
So we change to
So
the
now we
main
go to
motion,
the
which
main
is to put it
motion.
all out there.
So the main motion is to put the video of all 6 candidates as well as the deliberation on our YouTube accounts and make it available for the public. That's been made and seconded.
Yeah, just point of clarification, on the YouTube channel as well as it's sent to the Access Committee, Access channels in
Yep.
both towns.
In both towns.
Okay.
We'll do a roll call vote on that as well. So all those in favor of that?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
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 No.
So passes as a majority. Okay, so now we can move forward. And I did speak to Art yesterday, so I'm just going to read some prepared stuff that we talked about in terms of the public that is here, as well as the ones that would be viewing it on video. So the process has really started really back in October. We did an online survey, we outreach to key community stakeholders in both towns, town officials and so forth, from a list that we provided, to really get a good idea of what the needs were within this open position. Perry's wonderful, but we wanted to really see what the community stakeholders were, and that really produced a wonderful community needs assessment. And we did that, and that's made available to the public as well. It's been online. And from there, we really went to coming up with our screening committee, which was all the feedback that we got from both of you, from the candidates, was outstanding. So that screening committee really did a fine job, and Erin and Diane leading that committee was great. At this point, we want to thank all of the candidates that came, the 6 candidates that we've seen so far, for their willingness to be available to us through the interview and the selection process. I think I can speak for everybody. Really enjoyed conversing with all the candidates, learning more about them. It's very clear that all the finalists, all 6, are well qualified to be educational leaders. They all come from their own unique backgrounds and experiences and an array of talents. We're fortunate to be in this position to kind of, talk about these 6 candidates and consider them for the position of superintendent of schools. But now our job is to look at each of the candidates, each of the talented people, and try to decide which one would best meet our school system's needs as well as we move into the future. So what's the best fit for our system? I'm just going to quickly kind of go over the candidate profile that was created. Talked about a community builder who's approachable, friendly, accepts responsibility, an educational leader who can understand and able to articulate needs and goals of an excellent educational system. An organized regional district financial manager, knowledgeable regional districts in budget and finance, the budgeting process, fiscally prudent, able to prioritize, strategic planner and leader, proven ability to lead an inclusive effort to assess current programming and able to move forward. And we talked about some of the tasks of the new superintendent would be to build trust within the communities, to create a common vision, focus about schools across the district and the communities, create a positive sense of collaboration, and leading the effort effectively. So that's where we're at. And now the process falls to the 8 of us, like it has been the last couple of weeks. And how we move forward from that. So as a committee, now we take that step to talk about who are the candidates that we want. And we're really not eliminating anybody tonight. We're really just moving forward to who are the 2 or 3 that we really want to learn more about from their districts, from where they work now, and how we plan that. So with that, how did I do with that? So with that, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to open it up to you guys, if you guys want to lead us in any type of how we go through that.
Would you like us to?
That, I think we do.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we'd like you to do is to each think individually for a few minutes about the maybe 3 whom you choose to, that you would like to visit their, have a site visit for.
Can I ask just one question? Is it going to be 3 or is it going to be 2?
We're just asking you to think about 3 right now.
Okay.
We're just
Thank you.
asking you to,
You could do 4.
you can do as
You
many
can
as you
do
want.
as many
but-
as you want.
But right now, we're saying, if you could think about who you'd like to see and do a site visit, just take a few minutes as individuals and think about that.
Maybe even jot them down. Jot the 3 down that you, at least at this point, you're not eliminating anyone. All 6 folks are still in the running. You may go beyond these 3. You don't know yet. But let's talk about the 3 that you'd like to know more about, the 3 that you'd like to visit their sites. You all set? Everybody set?
Do you need another minute or two?
Need more time? You okay? Okay. Well, let's take them in alphabetical order. Why don't you call them
Okay,
out?
so Margot Austin.
Raise your hand if you would like to visit her.
Definitely like it, okay. Is it 4? Yeah. Okay. About Anthony Azar. Okay. How about Alan? Alan Himmelberger? Oh, no.
Who was it? Oh,
Wait,
The last
I'm
one.
sorry.
Himmelberger. Alan Himmelberger.
Himmelberger, oh.
Alan Himmelberger?
I know, it's the alphabetical, you throw me.
Oh, I can put them up in order of
No, this is
interest.
fine.
Okay.
This is fine.
Okay, so Alan Himmelberger. Okay. Andrew Keel? Craig Levis?
Well, 5, I think, right? Would you say Andrew?
We just did
Yeah, I just
Andrew.
did Andrew, yeah.
We've got
Okay,
Andrew.
I'm sorry, oh, Levis.
Levis?
Craig Levis?
Okay. David? Okay.
Supposed to vote for 3.
3, yeah.
Well, for 6.
No, I only voted for 3, like 3 are done. I just wanted to make sure. I thought people were.
It would appear that the folks that you are interested in seeing at this point, given just a quick tally, would be Margot, Anthony, Alan, Andrew, and David.
Do you want last names, or are you good?
Can you just do that one more time?
Well, that was
Are you
5
doing
out
them
of
in
6,
alphabetical
right?
order?
All right, no, we can do it again. We'll see where we end up.
Yeah.
So if we were to take Margot, Anthony, Alan, Andrew, and Thompson, David Thompson. Okay? Now go through and tell us which 3 you'd like.
I'm sorry, can you read that one more time?
Okay, you know what?
I
Was
need a
everyone
visual.
except
I can do.
Levis.
I
The only-
can
but
tell-
she's giving him to-
Did they all tie?
Are
Was
those
that
in
it, or
alphabetical?
did
The only one
some
who's
get
not is
more?
Levis.
No.
They're all in the same range.
Okay.
So of the remaining 5, try again on the 3 that you'd like to.
Now,
So it's
can
just
I ask,
crossing out.
okay, this
Am I
is a
still
fine
here?
Yeah.
process, but there really isn't any interaction between the committee members.
There
to
will,
talk about
there
it.
will
We're
be.
gonna-
Oh, there will be.
Okay, but, okay, I disagree with that, because I think that there should be some discussion about all 6 before we even take one person off the table.
I think this is just like a snapshot of where we stand right now, and then we're gonna, maybe I'm
What if you
wrong.
find out that, okay, Anthony Azar comes out in this next round, and then you find out through the discussion and the interaction that he really shouldn't have been?
Then he goes back in.
He goes
Through the
back in.
We're
screening
not
process,
taking
we
any-
did do this.
We're not taking anybody out.
All we're trying to
All
do
these-
is,
all
all we're
these
trying to do
things-
is to give you a sense of where people's thinking is bringing.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, just because we're doing it this way, if you as a committee decide that you want to stop and discuss, that's clearly in the committee's purview to do that. So,
Well, I think we've just sat here through, like, 6 or 7 or 8 hours of, we have, and then the other 2 of the folks have been through more of it. And I just think to just to do this is maybe getting ourselves ahead of the time, that maybe we should, maybe take each candidate and maybe just do a little bit of discussion.
We
I
did
would
do
like
the
to see the
screening
snapshot.
process, and it actually did work.
Yeah,
We did bring people back
yeah.
Okay.
that were knocked out in the
Nobody's out.
first
Fine.
round.
Oh,
Then you
wait, so-
advocated for your candidate. So it did, I thought it worked well when we did it with the screening. So Erin, did you?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think, Mike, you can talk about anybody you want in terms of when
Yeah.
the discussion opens
Yeah.
up. It-
All right.
It's open.
Yeah, and we don't use expressions like knocked out.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, really, because these candidates, as you said,
Yep.
all are remaining
They're
in
all
play
Mhm.
until the superintendent is appointed.
Okay, thank you.
so let's try it again. All those that would like to visit Margot.
We're still picking 3, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
still
but
picking
now
3.
out of the 5.
So Margot Austin. We've got 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Anthony Azar. Alan Himmelberger.
Andrew Keel.
Andrew Keel.
David Thompson.
David Thompson. Okay. What's interesting is you're equally split among these 5 out of the 6. And so the question now becomes, in terms of conversation, where does that lead you? In terms of advocating for a particular set of 3 or a particular one that you think should be in this first round, if you will, of visits. So this is where that would occur.
And if I may, what happens with candidates now is you make a decision. You had made a decision, a tentative decision, when you met, I think, on the 20th, that on the 13th and the 14th of March, you would do site visits. So you may end up doing 5 site visits or adding a day. So what we're saying here now is you're going to decide what site visits you're going to do. You're going to do 4, 5, 6, 3, 2, how many site visits you'd like to do, and then how many people you'd like to invite back to spend a day in this district and have an evening interview.
Now, the way your opinions have turned out at this point, they're all pretty much equal, which then brings up the question, do you want to visit all 5, or do you want to bring it down to a lesser number? Because in terms of where people are, it's very, very close.
Is it possible to have like a dialogue instead of deciding 2 or 3 and have that dialogue like you were saying, and then maybe
Absolutely.
have that
Now it's
conversation
Have
instead of,
multiple.
because
Yeah,
I would
that's
be
what you
concerned
wanna
with
do.
narrowing it down to 2 without having a discussion,
Right.
This would
when
be a
you
great-
could have that discussion with 3.
This is the right time to do that, absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Just want to go down the list and,
Well, of the 5 right now,
Yeah.
or anybody.
Actually, anybody, but you kind of know the landscape now. You know that they're all have equal support, pretty
So do-
much, and that's what you're
Do we want to visit
Right.
5? That would be the first question.
I really, I don't want to visit 5.
No.
So
I
one
know
of the,
I know it's kind of, in the environment we live in, it sometimes can be difficult to make these decisions, but we have to bring it down to a manageable level.
Exactly.
And 5 is not manageable. You know, even 3 is gonna be difficult, because really, if you're gonna spend the time to do it correctly, you need to really kind of focus in whether it's 2 or 3, what have you. So, and I think there are some, at least as we make these discussions, I think that there are some, you know, some issues that need to be brought out that through the discussion and maybe, so.
I would say that at this point, you would take a look at your selected candidate profile, your successful candidate profile, the needs of the district, and talk in terms of, I feel this candidate is a really strong match because type of thing.
Okay. So, I'm going to start, I guess. I mean, for me, my 3, I really kind of, I wanted to, for me, I wanted to see a sitting superintendent, an assistant superintendent, and a principal. That was my mindset coming in here. And I think the gentleman, Mr. Himmelberger, you know, kind of really hit on a lot of the things that we've been through, and I think we're going to be going through as a district. I think he clearly knows the financial piece, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I do think that he talked a lot about relationships, like a lot of the candidates did, and how he kind of facilitated change. So that for me, that was a match in terms of my just to at least to pique my interest to go and see what his district has to say about him.
Can I add to that? Since we're on.
Sure, meeting, sure.
Since we're, I also liked that he had standing meetings every Thursday with the finance committees, and to give them as much information as possible. I believe it was to speak to Erin's question. And like I said, he does have the business background, and he did speak to not being, you know, an educator per se, and, you know, how he's made up for that with his relationships. He also, I believe, was involved in IBB training, or some aspect of that. He was involved in a work-to-rule situation. So just to add to the...
Yeah, I'll jump on that. I think what we've struggled with the last couple of years, and what we're going to struggle with, I think, the next few years, are his strengths. He clearly, I know he answered it, but I think he needs help in curriculum, which is okay, because we're looking for an assistant superintendent. So I think he's got the whole business relationship, town communication piece really, really strong. And yeah, I've asked around about him, and he has a tremendous reputation. But yet, I think the other part of it is lacking with him, which is okay. That's all right. I think it's just, they need to be balanced, the assistant and the superintendent. So basically, we know what we're getting from him. He doesn't have to be excellent at everything, and that's okay.
I'm gonna make the counter argument on that. I'm concerned that there's over a $300,000 delta between their incoming choice and their outgoing choice, and he really didn't answer that. He kind of blamed it on, well, he kind of pointed out the pressure from Southern Worcester County location, which is Bay Path, but I really didn't follow up on where they're actually leaving to. I would assume, based on that corner of Worcester County, there are probably several that are going off to Shepherd Hill, which is Dudley Charlton. I'm concerned about that, because that's one of the things we're addressing, both of those issues. His high school is a level 3 school. It's 10 years old, and they had massive problems out there when it was constructed. Also, I'm concerned that they had to go back and ask for more money for a middle school renovation. That's usually a death knell if you've got to go back and look for that. Also, I really do believe that school teachers are a different animal. I work in a public school, but I'm not a school teacher, and I get it that I don't have that somewhat of that link to the classroom teacher. And I think that could be an issue. That could be an issue as a person moves into this district. It doesn't really have that basis. The other thing is that it's very important, of course, of all these numbers and, data and teachers and head count and all that stuff. It's all very nice. But really, how are we going to establish programs? How are we going to rebuild the reputation and the culture that was once Blackstone Millville? Okay, it's more than just test scores. It's more than just numbers. It's that soft thing that you can't put your arm around. And I don't know whether, and no disrespect intended to the candidate, but I don't know whether that his lack of that skill set is enough to be overcompensated. His business skills overcompensate that. I want an educational leader. I think we all want an educational leader that's going to lead the educational process. So that's children, keeping children in seats, keeping programs alive, getting buy-in from the two communities to support these things. And, I did do a little bit of research there. He also stated that he was just a candidate, he wasn't looking, but he was a finalist in Norton in January. So he's definitely been out shopping. I'm just laying it out there. So I think that that's a little questionable. And I don't know whether he has the staying power or he's the right fit here at Blackstone Millville.
Well, anyone else that hasn't spoken yet?
Well, I could kind of piggyback that. I think it's going to be a hard sell with just the experience of a permanent sub so many years ago. I mean, being in a school, even, the experience of being a teacher, whether it be elementary, middle, or high school, usually for several years, it gives you a sense of where you're at, or being in somebody else's shoes and get that understanding. You can't replicate that anywhere beyond kind of being there. And then usually being in the principal's ship or assistant and that type of thing, you're in the life of the school. You're working with the parents. That you get the sense of that. So I think educational leadership, I really think that the lack of experience is what I have a problem with, of being either an educator or in the life of the school. Hands down, he's got the business part, and if that was the sole thing that we were looking for, then I would say hands down, but just the educational leadership and the lack of experience, I have issues with.
Right?
I agree with Steve, and I don't think, we're looking for a business manager. We're looking for somebody who can manage this district. And I don't think it's important that somebody was in a classroom. I mean, I'll use a sports metaphor. Bill Belichick didn't play professional football, but he's done okay. All right? So I agree that we have two opportunities. One is to hire a strong superintendent, and another is to hire a good assistant superintendent. And I think that if we define those two roles, with one focused on the academic piece of the curriculum, and the other really managing the business needs of the schools and the community, then I think we could get both. And I don't think you can get all of that in one package, not based on the people we saw. I don't think we're going to see the whole deal in one person. I really don't.
So that's where I disagree with you on the we're not hiring a business manager.
Can I let Erin go before? Go ahead.
Well, just based on what you said, and if we look at the whole snapshot and the 6 that we have, there isn't anyone that has everything. And we did come into it saying, if we find someone that has the strong business background, then we'll go for curriculum in this position. So we knew we had that flexibility. I would be interested in visiting the current district. That's all I'm saying.
Anyone else? Diane?
I think, and as a screening committee too, we brought you a very diverse group. And I think as a screening committee, we did kind of say there was no overlap. They all had their own kind of qualities. And I went on the screening committee feeling very strongly about finding somebody with a very strong business. But I came out of it really thinking about, when you think about business, I think business is more managerial, and I think superintendent is more leadership and inspirational. And there's definitely a difference there. And I think, for me, I'm looking for somebody leadership and inspirational.
All right, go ahead, Mike.
Point I want to make clear to everyone is I don't know whether the assistant superintendent is our appointment.
It's not.
I believe that it's whoever we select as the superintendent of schools is going to pick someone that's going to, be his assistant, his or her assistant. So we cannot dictate that to a certain point. And once again, going back to what Diane's saying, this is the person, this is the point person. This is the person that all the townspeople and the various school districts in the area will look to. This is the leader of the educational system, the educational process, what have you. So no one's going to know. No one really cares if he knows how to, maybe balance a spreadsheet or work a spreadsheet or something like that. Really, no, we don't. What we are concerned with is that the house is in good financial order. But we're not going to put. It isn't the business manager that's out there that's pushing for programs. Typically, business managers or people with business expertise do not understand the role of a classroom teacher, or the process that needs to be put in place in order for all this curriculum to flow. And really, it's the superintendent who's the guy or gal that's out there in town meeting, in front of the parents, and that's where the buck stops. Not the Mike Buck, but the buck. Okay, so really, but you would hope that if you had a great leader or a good leader, that he or she would pick or build the team around he or she to be successful. And that's historically what we've had. Okay, not to belabor the point, but 2 superintendents for 30 years, and the assistant superintendent was the assistant to those 2 people. That was, that was excellent leadership.
And I think one other thing that I'll just point out is, I think, not always successfully, but you can teach somebody the budget aspects of it, but I don't think you can necessarily teach somebody to be inspirational and to lead and get people to naturally follow them. I think that comes from within the person.
Okay, all right. So do you want to move on to someone else? I think we've talked
It's your
about him.
meeting.
Sure, absolutely.
Who else?
Who's next?
The other was Anthony Azar, Mr.
Yep, I
Go
can start, because I take notes from the thing. I found, where's Anthony? I thought he was a very effective communicator. I liked his decisiveness when he talked and answered the questions. I thought he had leadership qualities, and the safety and concern for the children came through with Anthony. That's what I saw.
Thank you.
I just liked that vigor and that intensity that he had. Those are my notes on it.
I had a lot of notes on the curriculum aspect with him. He did use a lot of, he had the experience behind assessments and names of assessments, and his background showed him as, he did have different titles. One was a classroom teacher, one was a principal, one was a curriculum director. So in the aspect of how much experience he had, I found him to have the experience background. Let's see. He did say in the 10 years, where do you see education going? Technology and science and math.
Yeah, I think, I'm looking where he's worked. He's been in some tough situations in the
Yeah.
past. And, in some ways, he's the flip side of the person we just talked about. I mean, if you look at where we've been the last 5 or 6 years, we're in dramatic need of a strong curriculum person. We've kind of treaded water for curriculum for the last 5 years, as far as I'm concerned, and I think he's got that. He really does. And he's done it in some really tough areas, New Bedford, Taunton. And yeah, he's come through the ranks. He's been a teacher, he's been a principal, he's run some different programs. He's an assistant, I think, assistant superintendent for curriculum. So he's got that. But yet, I think the other side of it, from my experience, some of the principals and people coming from large districts like that have nothing to do with the budget. The budget is given to them. Whereas, in a district like ours, you have to do it all. Whereas, so I think he may need budget help.
And I did
But
have
got
that
curriculum.
also. I agree with you. I had that also for him, concerned about the budget, but in terms of the curriculum, he spoke with experience, and he gave specific, not just list-like, but more, kind of off the tongue, and it was curriculum-wise, but I do agree with you on the budget sense.
I also liked he had that legislative piece, which is interesting, because I think a lot of the issues that we're dealing with need somebody to bring it to the next level. We can't handle it. We're not going to make changes district-wide. We need to go to the state level. I think he has that experience. I think when he spoke about turning around Taunton and the ability to take a district or a school at least in a different direction and be successful at that.
While his resume is extensive, I'm a little concerned about really, in larger districts like that, trying to feed into significant bureaucracy. And I get this feeling that there are several layers between Dr. Azar and actually the children. So I was a little concerned about that. I'm also understand that New Bedford's a level 5 district, and that there are some major changes afoot in the district presently.
They have access to a lot of resources, I think, because as a result of that
Yes.
as well.
But right, and that's not going to be the case here. It's going to be you in the street, it's going to be, the rubber hits the road here pretty quick. I'm also concerned about, he's not an assistant superintendent, he's the administrator of curriculum and instruction. And it seemed like that, like I said, there were a lot of layers in that. I was a little concerned about his tenure in Taunton. From some of my reading, I think things were very difficult in Taunton, and I don't know, I'm not quite sure about that. That's another school district that's in despair or is in crisis. Although he mentioned technology and being in that game, I was not overly impressed, thinking that, they pretty much get a lot of reimbursement because they're an inner-city school. They get a lot of reimbursement in E-rate. They get, internal wiring and all that, and it just seemed like to me that a curriculum person today should have some knowledge, more deeper understanding of the technology. Now, once again, I want to, preface that that's my game, but I was not really overwhelmed, and I just think of a district like that with the resources that they potentially have and the ability to really, push them in the right direction would be really a big win. So I have some strong reservations on Dr. Azar, and although he was a senator in Rhode Island, he only served one term, and that's all I got to say about that.
Right?
Yeah, I thought actually the opposite that you thought about leadership. I didn't feel any leadership from him. I just didn't resonate with me at all. I think he's strong in curriculum. If we're looking for somebody focused on curriculum, he might bring that to us. But I don't see him as someone who could sit in front of selectmen, townspeople, and talk about all of the operational pieces of the district. So
Anyone else? I thought they had a lot of strengths. Clearly, the curriculum piece was his major strength. I just didn't think it wasn't a match for us, at this point in time. Go ahead.
I actually, I do disagree with what you said about a disconnect from the children. I mean, if you look at his, part of his resume, I mean, his community activities are youth soccer, t-ball, I mean, and then go back to his teaching experience. He started in Providence. Every district he was in was tough, like you said, like Providence, Taunton, New Bedford. That's like
Exeter West Greenwich
experience.
is a pretty
Sure.
affluent community.
And that's very
We stayed only
comparable
there a
to
year.
us. That would be more comparable to us. So, in all of those positions, he was with the kids. Right, I think the only time he's been more disconnected from the students would be in New Bedford, from what I'm looking at. A few things he said to us is, if you can work as a team, real good things happen. I think it's a really good way to walk into something.
But I was concerned.
He's also a trained mentor for, he's a teacher, he's been a principal, he's a trained mentor for teachers, so he's teaching our teachers. So I just think those are good qualities.
He did
that-
talk about coffee hours and.
Yes, he did. He said that that's how he would bring his visibility accessible to the community, coffee hours, after hours, not on his time, on the parents' time. He had a really good sense of humor. I mean, he talked about going to the Lego movie recently. To me, he was connected to what our kids are doing right now. So I just,
Well, he has children
I
in that
think-
age group, right?
sorry.
He has some children that are
He
adolescents.
has one second grader and he said a high schooler.
Okay.
So that's a pretty wide span.
Anyone else?
No,
No?
said mine.
Anyone else? Okay, all right. What about, who's next on that, 5?
Actually, we went by Margot. Did you want
Margot?
Oh, I was just
Started
working
with
our
her.
way up.
to, you're going up? Okay.
Oh,
No, let's do Margot.
We've been skipping around.
She knew her stuff.
Right,
She
did.
researched, she did do the research on our district for what's out there. And she did point them out when she was here.
And I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but at the open house this past Saturday, she showed up. She went on the tours of the buildings. She was there.
I went to the craft fairs expecting to see a few of them.
There.
I said, maybe they'll pop in. Well, I can go, I thought she had a lot of experience in the special ed curriculum and things like that, so I mean, that's good knowledge to have, knowing that piece of it when you are doing budgets and such, and understanding the whys and hows. And I thought her leadership was good, and she seemed to have like, a lot of different stuff in her background, but I didn't put a lot down for her, so.
I found more, again, strong managerial. I didn't get the warm fuzzies. Just the excitement. Although she was very, very solid. I cannot take that away from her. Very solid. I don't know.
But I think she had solid, solid knowledge of the district, like Wendy said, in terms of during her answers. She talked about district learning teams, 5-year strategic plan, talked about difficult conversations,
Grant
even-
writing.
I'm sorry?
She did talk about grant writing.
Yep, and the book that the whole district, Schooling by Design, and using that as initiative for everybody. I think her budget experience was really on the special ed side, but that's budget experience. I think she's in that she was one of the assistant superintendents that I kind of put down that I would want to go and see what her district had to say about her in terms of backing up some of these things. But I thought she was well-rounded. Clearly did her homework before getting here. Used everyone's first name. Yeah, wait, that stuff. Yeah. So that's a reason.
I just,
Michael?
William, I liked her, but I just had one little issue. And that is she a team builder? Or is she more of a managerial this is how this functions. That was one of my concerns, and through some discussion with some people that work in Sutton, I still have that concern. We had a very authoritarian superintendent in the past. And I just want to make sure that whomever this candidate becomes is someone that's going to work with the team that's in place or build a good team that will have good interaction so that it's not all thou shalt have. And I'm just a little bit concerned on that. I thought she was pretty solid. And I'm going to state this for the record, it left me a little concerned on Saturday that a candidate would come. That, there's almost a certain level of expectations that during this process to keep it balanced. And while there was no invitation extended, certainly it was open to the public and it's certainly free will. However, ethically and morally, I'm concerned. Just a little bit. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned, but, I just think that this is a process that we've tried to keep very clean and above board, and this leaves me with just a little bit of concern.
I don't see it that way. I wasn't there, but I think it showed initiative, unless, and again, I wasn't there, unless there was an attempt to interact in an appropriate way, but it sounds like she just went through the tour. to see
There was
the
no
buildings,
inappropriateness,
so.
but it was just, I'm just
I think
saying
that's
that,
initiative.
did we extend it to all 6 candidates? And, you know what I mean? There's just some kind of like lines you don't cross, and I just feel a little violated that that line was crossed. And what concerns me is down the road, I want to make sure that we're putting the right person in the place to lead, but also keep the committee informed and not be, kind of off on your own a little bit. So I'm just raising that, and it's just Mike talking, and Brian?
So I agree with some of the comments previously. I think she had a good, diverse background. And I do disagree with you on the open house, and I disagree with the fact that all these candidates had the opportunity to go out and research this district. And the evidence I saw, she's the only one who did. When I have a candidate come into my business who I'm going to look to hire, I want to know they're really interested and committed to that. So she read a lot about us. She knew it. She could repeat it back to us. Everybody else could have done that, but they didn't. So I think she's interested. I think she's got a real commitment to education, obviously. I do have a little bit of a concern in whether or not she could be a team builder. That I think that's something that would have to be explored, to see if she has those leadership skills and delegation and team building skills. So,
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and Mike, I don't really disagree with what you're saying. You're right. I mean, it was a little weird. You showed up, but yet I took that as her recognition that it's a two-way street. She's interviewing us just as much as we're interviewing her. So she wanted to know what the state of the buildings and what she was getting into, because, she could make it, anyone could make it 99% of the way and just walk away. So I look at it as, she was checking us out. And you're right. I mean, did we tell her, hey, we're doing this thing on Saturday? No. Probably in her research, she came across that information and said, hey,
Was on the
here's my chance. But you're right. Did anyone else show up? Maybe not.
My
Maybe
only
this Saturday
concern
someone
is
else will
that
show.
there's a time when we get to that next level that,
Then
you
it's
do the
appropriate
tours.
to do that.
Like, I don't know, and, I look to the consultants if they've run into situations like that, but it just left me a little uneasy. Aaron?
I don't think it should be counted against any of them that they didn't show up, because it wasn't an invitation. And I would leave it at that. We are going to invite the ones that we want to come. And like you said, it was open to the public, but I don't think we should be saying, well, that's a plus or a minus for any of them, because it wasn't handed to them. When I'm looking at all 6, I'm looking at this. And it's what everyone told us they feel we need. And I'm just trying to respect that. And I really think if you look at the four major things here that I just agree with, I agree with what you said about, you're saying team builder, I'm looking at community builder. Because, yes, team in the buildings, and then, I mean, we need it to expand beyond that community builder. And we need to move forward from what we did have, so that could be a deciding.
Wendy, did you? Keo? Dr. Keo? Go ahead.
Nutshell, I was very impressed. I have effective communicator, evidence of decisiveness with decisions. I thought he had a great sense of humor, diplomacy, leadership, confidence, involvement in the community concerned with children. I have more comments on him than probably most. I was really touched by the sincerity that I thought he portrayed and the leadership he did. The biggest working with like districts, there was Hopkinton, the fact it was here at BMR, Milford, Douglas. I mean, they're kind of in the same ballpark. Wesley High School, how impressive. And when I think of Wesley, I think big bucks. So I'm saying, why Blackstone Millville? And I'm just being honest. And I believe it's the sincerity. My concern would be the commitment, and I would hope he'd be committed to this district for 5 to 10 to 15 years to 20. And then some. He can't retire, so. But I can't guarantee that for any of the people that we're looking at out of all 6. Something down the road for unforeseen circumstances, they could leave the district. But I was just very impressed with Andy.
I found he had leadership. He had that inspirational quality. I do believe anything that and not that I thought he was lacking in anything, no central office experience, but I don't see that as a hindrance. He's going to learn anything he needs to learn. So I had a lot of confidence in his candidacy.
Are we going around?
Sure, no, no.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. I believe Dr. Keough had the approachable, friendly, positive attitude that what we're looking for. I think he had communication skills. He showed empathy by giving the examples that he used. I do have a concern about his skill set in the elementary level, and I know at some of, I believe it was Steve's question on data. The only data that was really given in that question was the MCAS data. And so I do have a concern on the curriculum side of Dr. Keough. I do know, I mean, he was a principal at the high school. I think my biggest concern is the skill set on the curriculum aspect. It shows that he loves kids. He worked on strategic plan. But like I said, I was looking for more in-depth answers when it came to data, and when it came to the interaction between special education and regular education. That would be my big concern, because we have lacked that in the past. And I think I'm really looking at these, all of the people in the curriculum side. But again, he was approachable. He definitely had the community builder facade. I was just concerned about the curriculum.
I do carry the same concerns with the elementary level of it, and I actually asked him a specific question about it, and he said I would have a learning curve. So he was very honest in his answers. He was very, I believe he's very, he definitely has the experience moving in the direction of a superintendent. I believe he wants to be a superintendent, but I don't know that the principal to superintendent move is what our matches our needs right now. Definitely a community builder, very friendly, very, definitely an educational leader, but again, all high school, no middle school or elementary. An organized regional district financial manager. There's nothing I mean, I know he was on a school committee, but just like you just pointed out, you work in a school, but it doesn't mean you could be a superintendent. So just, to me, I don't know if that experience puts him into a district financial manager slot. So for me, it was just, out of the 6 people, there are 3, we were only choosing 3 that just had a little more than what he has on his resume.
I mean, I liked Dr. Keough. I disagree with you on the budget a little bit, because I think his budget at the high school is $14 million that he has to manage and build each year. But I think things I liked about him was, talked about an entry plan, talked about communicating, talked about, in terms of the data, having, if you have triplets, and you have a common assessment, and digging down and looking at the DDMs and the subgroups and so forth. A lot of relationship building, I think, and somewhat connection to here. He said he was nostalgic, coming back here. I thought he was really good at, one of the good things he said about being a leader was you have to be really good at communicating what the needs are. You have to be visible in the community. You have to ask legitimate questions. You just can't. You have to have, build trust. He talked about a reflective learning culture, and one of the things he talked about was, early on in his career, he had a mentor that really talked about what's it like being in your meeting. And I thought he was really reflective around that. I think that would be a good team builder. That would really contribute a great deal. And then I thought he had a really good closing about taking a chance on him. Talking about your principal, superintendent, and reflecting back to when his first job, when he said that the person that hired him said, "I'm really counting on you," and that resonated with me a lot. In terms of that. So I thought he was a really good match for what we're looking for in the district.
I thought, in a nutshell, he's a climber, no doubt. He went from BMR assistant principal to a slightly bigger school as assistant principal to a small high school to a big high school. He's going to be here for 3 years, and he's going to go somewhere else. I would bet money on that. So
I'll take the bet.
So we are just
I
a
might
step
take
on
the
his
bet,
ladder, no doubt. I'm looking. He had no answer for you whatsoever about special ed. None. You asked about the connection between special ed and regular ed. He had no answer at all. He has no middle school experience and no elementary school experience.
Can I just point that out, that question was wrongly phrased, and the candidate tonight also had a problem connecting that too? So, I heard the question tonight, I didn't hear it last week, but, the question was a little ambiguous. I think that they were thinking kids, and you were thinking staff.
Teachers.
And it was rephrased and answered.
That night it was.
Right.
You asked
Well,
it in 2 parts.
his background is special ed. That's where he started.
Yeah, he should have hit that one out of the park then. But, he's a great leader, great vision. He had great answers in the higher level things, but I don't think.
Don't you think that our situation, or the situation that Wendy pointed out, is unique? Do other school districts have this perceived disconnect between the regular ed staff and special ed staff?
Yes.
Okay, well,
Yes.
I speak from experience.
Yes, from experience.
That was quick, sir.
Well, Andy, Kathy, do you agree with
Yes,
that?
yes, I will.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Not at all levels, but
Yeah.
many levels there's a disconnect.
But
So if-
he is a leader, no doubt.
But there's also current research out there based on bringing them together in cooperative teaching. I believe one of them did mention it. Co-teaching,
Team teaching.
right, and I think that was the purpose of the thing, is to see if they were up to date on the research behind bridging that gap and the co-teaching model, which is the research that's out there. So that was the purpose of my question, not to be ambiguous. So just a point of clarification on that. And being a
But it
teacher,
seemed like- it
and
seemed
being a
like two
teacher, I
people
think that was where I was
But
coming from.
isn't it odd that two people felt, kind of like,
Yeah, you're right, absolutely.
so there's, so,
Absolutely.
there's something.
In which I rephrased it, so, and he successfully answered it,
Uh-huh.
definitely,
But if he was here, he'd do a great job, but I think we'd be right back where we are right now, 3 years from
3
now.
years from now. Yeah,
We'd
I
offer
agree.
him a
Which really-
5 or
it
10-year
really is-
contract,
is
you
the
take
risk for
him.
all, too.
It really is, but.
It's the risk for all.
A longer
but-
contract. He could
His
still
track
leave.
Yeah.
record is that.
He could
Steve,
still
if we
Might not
leave.
be here in 3 years.
Steve, if we gave him 10 years or something, would that be enough for you?
Yeah, but he'd
Do it
still,
on
he
that
would, he could
contract.
still leave.
Exceed 3 or 5.
can leave
and
a
all.
I know,
contract.
I'm just saying any of them could leave would be my point. Any last candidate
Okay.
here could
Michael?
not stay.
Okay, Andy was a sped teacher in Douglas. That's where he started out, and I think it might have been at the middle school level. I'm not sure. And then he went there and he went to Milford and did a similar job. Came to BMR in the 90s.
I just want to point out, he didn't point out the special ed part on his, it just says teacher. So I did not know he was special ed.
No,
Well,
I mean,
He talked about it.
Yeah,
He talked about it in Milford, but on Douglas, he.
in
put
Douglas,
just
he
teacher.
did. I think that's where his career started right there. So, I think it's important to realize that he does have a connection to the community. And although we didn't have many people here, there were a couple of folks that came back to hear his interview, and that was kind of interesting. One person that really will tell you that his life was turned around by the actions of the work with Andy Keogh worked with him. He will tell you explicitly that he was headed in the wrong direction, and I won't use the verbiage that he used when I talked with the young man, but I think that's a testament to the type of person we're dealing with in Andy. Now, you will all say that, oh, Andy's your candidate, and you're probably right.
I
And,
didn't say that. Is he?
Andy is my candidate, or I want to give strong consideration to Andy, because I know what he is capable of. I've heard from many people in the community, former school committee members of the community that I respect and admire, and know Andy very well, and it's not some of the usual suspects that people will say, well, he must have got a call from so-and-so. No, it's not the case. I want to point out to you that he might not have central office experience. Probably the guy that did more for this school district in the 20 years that he spent here was Thomas J. Cullen. He served as superintendent from 1970, opened the high school, to 1990 when he went to Milford. Does anyone know what Tom Cullen was before he became superintendent in Blackstone Millville? He's a guidance counselor at Nipmuc. He had no central office experience.
Was he ever a teacher?
Hmm?
Was he ever a teacher?
Tom was a teacher, but he was a guidance counselor. In fact, if you, I don't think it's up there anymore, but if you go to the
So he went from
professional
guidance counselor,
development,
I
so
thought
he went
was a
from
history
guidance
teacher
counselor
or
to a
something, but-
superintendent?
that's right.
Interesting.
Okay. Of course, that was 40 years ago,
That's
but
not
no one can
yeah.
dispute the contribution that Tom made to this community. And the fact that Tom was a visionary. Tom built a culture, and it was a fractured culture at the time. Okay, these two towns got divorced 100 years ago, and it was not a very rosy picture here in the late 60s when they were trying to build this school and open it. But Tom Cullen had the vision, and guys like Maloney and Sullivan hired Tom. In fact, I don't even think either one of them voted for him in the first go-around, because it was the region, and that's a long drawn-out story. But the key thing is that you have a chance here to set the district in a direction that I think we all have expectations. Andrew is well thought of. He's a thinker. You can tell that from his expressions, from his processing. He's also a warrior, as we found out if you read some of the packet that he provided, which I thought was kind of interesting. The point that I also want to make is that he understands children, regardless of their age. Okay, yeah, maybe he doesn't have a lot of primary and elementary experience, but that's what you have elementary principals for, much of it. Okay, but he cares about kids, and isn't that why we're all here? And I think it's key that you really look at some of the practices that he's put in place. Oh, sure, they're much more financially well off in Wellesley. But he's done some good things, and these problems are the same in Wellesley as they are in Blackstone, as they are in Northbridge, as they are over in Rentham. You know, so I think it's really important that we see that you have someone that's committed. I also, I've lost my train of thought, but anyway, I'll let someone else talk, so.
Well, is it my turn?
It is your
It
turn.
is,
thanks,
Brian.
Mike. Breath. So I was pretty interested, and Andrew had him pretty high on my list till I found out he was Mike's candidate. I gotta rethink the whole process here. But I gotta say, I don't know if I'm worried or impressed that he used to work here and he wants to come back. So,
Oh, that's what I wanted to make a point, just before you leave.
oh no.
I agree with Kathy that I think he would commit to more than 3. I don't think it's 3 and out. I really think that, he cares about, I think wherever Andy lands, and he will land, he will make a difference. And I think he'll make a difference I don't see him as a 3 and out guy. I really don't. I see him as having a longer-term commitment. But once again, commitment is a two-way street. Is the committee committed to him or her or whomever this may be, as well as is the candidate committed to us? I agree with you, Steve. It's the last thing I want to be doing if I'm reelected, to be sitting here in 3 years doing, are you kidding me? So, anyway, I'm sorry, Brian.
Okay,
I'm done.
here, have a drink. I agree with Kathy, too, that I think his sincerity came through. I think he's very passionate about kids. I really, when you talked about the epitaph, I like some of the answers by all the candidates on that. And one of the things he said, I wrote down, was he wants his epitaph, it'll actually fit on a headstone if he's going that route, is he loved kids and he went to the mat for kids. And I think that's where you got to start. Because if you don't even bother applying or saying you did this or did that, because it doesn't matter. He did talk about a number of different things that I think shows the diversity in his background. He talked about zero-based budgeting, which I was impressed that he had that approach. He talked about radical changes coming with technology and online learning, which is, don't be sugarcoated that either. But I went through my notes on his answers, and each one of them I think he hit pretty well. And but I did have him high on my list because I think, like you said, that it'd be nice to have different backgrounds that we can compare and contrast to see how they fit into what we're looking for. And I think he brings a different background than some of the other candidates that's worth us pursuing.
And who do we have left?
We
Mr.
have
Thompson.
Craig
Thompson.
Luth,
David Thompson.
Levis.
No, Thompson.
Yeah, we
talk
kinda-
about Levis.
Oh,
Yeah, Levis
Craig.
was
Thompson.
low on the
Thompson.
votes,
Thompson?
so.
I'll start. He obviously is the freshest one in our mind. But he was actually the first one to answer Wendy's question. I will point that out. I think when you look at the 4 components of a successful candidate, community builder, and educational leader, I think he blows some people out of the park, because if you look at him, he's an Eagle Scout. He was worked at a Boy Scout camp through his teaching career. It looks like he just stopped when he got more into the administrative. That is very recognizable, in my opinion. That means he loves kids. Does this go unsaid? Do I have to say he loves kids? He obviously did that for a reason. And I think if we compare the 2 principles we're looking at, to me, it just seemed like it was just a bit stronger if we're going to bring one forward. To me, he had stronger points that I liked.
Kathy?
I didn't have too much on him as far as that. The answers were good. I thought he presented well, but have basically mostly average scores for him, where I think he answered the questions okay, but I didn't see the sincerity, the leadership, I didn't see that coming out in the interview, and it could have been for a lot of reasons, but average scores is where it was with me.
Brian?
He's jumping around now.
Oh, no, you threw me off.
Yeah.
So I had plenty of time here to prepare. I guess I wasn't as impressed with him as some of the other candidates. I felt kind of the way I felt with Anthony, that both of them, I didn't think resonated with me from a leadership perspective. I don't see them leading the district. So I felt that way with David, too. I felt it was the same kind of barrier that I had.
I think he did have exceptional leadership skills at the school level. And I thought they could be transferable, certainly, to a district level. There were, with him, what do I have in my notes? Not as much, no central office experience, really. Not really a whole lot of budget. No, that's not even him, anyways. But and it's funny, because I'm just thinking, I saw a little more inspiration the first time I saw him during the screening committee, so I'm kind of trying to separate that out. I thought he was stronger the first time around I saw him, so I feel a little bit more about him. I can kind of see where maybe if you only saw him tonight, you didn't see as much. But he's certainly somebody I'd like to see again. I just thought he had a lot of strength at that school level, connecting the teachers, connecting the students, building a culture, and I did feel he could bring it to the next level at the district, so that's all for me.
I actually really, I thought highly of him. I thought he was approachable. I thought he was calm. I thought he had a good, balanced personality. I think I could see him as an educational leader. He did get Principal of the Year, which I know, Teacher of the Year? Principal of the Year, which I know is not easy.
2010.
He did talk about an entry plan and getting to know the community. He wanted to start as early as he could to build a plan with the district. His biggest disappointment was the 7th grader going through a tough time, and he couldn't help that person, which I thought was definitely genuine. He talked about a blended learning approach, and that technology is going to be large in the next couple of years. He talked about a budget going from 5% to 3%. He talked about developing relationships and trust with communities, that you can't cry wolf, which I think is great, that, he did come out and say, can't cry wolf, you have to have clear expectations. Just finished his doctorate, I believe. I think he's trying, if I'm not mistaken, if you look through his resume, he is trying to reach all aspects of what he can, to build his professional background. He developed open responses, which as a teacher, I know that's big right now. Talked about co-teaching, which I was happy that somebody answered my question. He did talk about rubrics and the evaluation and professional collaboration. Talked about sitting with people both horizontally and vertically. I thought that he hit a lot of the successful profile bullets.
Can I add one thing? I just want to point out that he was in the classroom for over 12 years as a teacher.
Yeah. I think you talk about building a team. I think he could be a team builder. He didn't have really any budget experience, but the middle school he came from in Mansfield is huge, if you've ever seen it.
1,200, I believe.
Enormous school. Just think about an enormous middle school, what that brings with it. 1,200 middle school
1,200,
kids.
128 staff.
That's tough. That's a tough thing. So yeah, maybe he doesn't have central office experience, but that's a pretty tough school. That's a pretty tough environment. but yet, still I think he's not quite ready yet. That was just the overall impression I just kept getting. He's not ready yet. I mean, if we had an opening for an assistant superintendent, I think he might be one I'd look at. But I don't think he's ready yet. That was a short answer, but.
I thought he had a lot of strengths, but it just wasn't a match for me.
I thought he had significant strengths. I'm a little concerned that, it's a very big district. Bridgewater Rainham's about twice the size of this, I'd say. About 5,500 kids or so. Overall, I don't know whether the jump is there yet, but certainly a strong candidate.
Was that all?
They're all in if you'd like to, you're welcome to talk about all of them. You've talked about the 5 that we're sort of gravitating
We
toward.
could talk about Mr. Levis. Diane?
I had difficulty with him, again, because I saw him for that first hour, which I really thought he was stronger the first hour with the screening committee, so I'm trying to separate out the two. Here we go. Strong curriculums, strategic plans, strong, I even have him down as a strong budget, I'm trying to remember back. Limited Mass, although I think he's been very involved. He lives in Mass, so I think he's sure he stayed somewhat current on education in Massachusetts. And I guess I'll go to what Steve said about the last candidate. Not quite ready for a superintendent yet, but all the qualities are there, and so,
Kath?
Yeah, I just had a few notes on him. Again, a lot of experience in Rhode Island, and, it is different in Massachusetts, and that's a little concerning. A lot of experience, which is good in special education, but it seemed like that's where the crux of all the education was. So, Burrville, Rhode Island, and then one time in Massachusetts. And the curriculum, and I just think the lack of, I think he has a lot of good qualities, but I just think experience-wise, he's just not ready yet.
Wendy?
I just didn't see him as a fit for our district.
Erin?
I really liked his background in special education. And just like Diane, I'm having a little trouble because of the 2 interviews. Some things came across very strong in one and not so much in the other. So I do think he's going to be a great superintendent, but like it's being said, just not ready at this point. Based on what our needs are.
I agree. I had a lot of good information in terms of, developing a brand and trust and a communication plan. I thought he had the best, kind of communication plan during one of your questions, Erin.
Yes.
And, getting buy-in and so forth. Really a lot of special ed kind of experience. Not afraid. I don't think he's afraid to make a tough decision or have difficult conversations. But I think I concur with my colleagues in terms of just not a match right now.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. He's a strong special ed background. He's just not ready yet. That's all. Nothing against him, nothing negative, but he's just not ready yet. But like you said, he'll be a superintendent someday, but just not now.
Mike?
It was interesting to hear his discussion on his business connections that they've been able to develop, whether it's Bryant University or some of those companies on the, Fidelity and some of those other places that are up there in the northern part of the town. Navient, Credit Union, great opportunities for kids, and that was very appealing. I kind of side with everyone. I think it's just not quite ready to to make the jump, but he will be superintendent someday. Take a look at Smithfield, probably about the 16th to 17th most affluent community in Rhode Island, so it's above average. They have about a $33 million budget. They get about 15% of their aid from the state. It's pretty much borne by the, the expense of education is borne by the taxpayers, certainly a different tax base than Blackstone and Millville. A lot of, there's a lot of commercial down there on Route 7, a lot of, other commercial or business up on the northern end, so much more diverse, but I don't think it's probably a good fit.
We need a highway.
I need a highway.
We need a highway.
Right down Main Street.
We have
We
a
got
highway,
one,
we need an
Main
off-ramp.
We need an offer.
We have a highway.
So I think, I had him actually a little bit higher than you guys did because I thought his exposure, not so much his experience, his exposure, it really felt like he's being mentored for the next step. And I think he spent the last couple of years really getting immersed in a lot of different activities. So that's where he appealed to me. I did like you, Aaron, the special ed background I thought was strong. But it definitely feels like he's poised to move on, and maybe not right now, but certainly in the future.
All right. What's our next step?
Well, I mean, I think the next step is to try to settle on those that you want to see. I think, for me, the conversation was very interesting, and that, you could see that people were seeing things in candidates that others probably didn't pick up, and I think the sharing among you brought some enlightenment in terms of, how others are viewing the candidates. Let me ask a question. Is there one candidate that you could all agree that you would like to see, do you think, at this point, without going through a number thing? Is there a sense that you could arrive at one that you'd...
I don't sense that.
You don't?
Do you? You do who?
Maybe,
I don't know.
maybe I could help just a little bit by saying that you're not committing to hiring the person.
Right.
You're saying, I'm sitting among a group of people whom I respect, and a lot of them really would like to take another look at this candidate. Am I open to that, or do I really feel it's not in the district's best interest? Is that too
Right,
strong?
and you're not ruling out anyone, because after these visits, you could decide that you want to visit more, because you've learned more about the candidates that you're about to see. So no one is being taken out of the pool at this point.
And the other reality is that as we go through our process, however long it takes, people might take themselves out.
They could. They could.
So I don't want to delay it too
No, I
much.
agree.
either.
And with that being said, I actually don't want to risk that and cut ourselves down to a number to two, because one takes
Yeah,
themselves
no,
out.
I actually agree with you. I
left
think three
I
is a
think
good
half
number.
of what we have right now might be a good
Mhm.
fit
Yep.
to visit.
To start
but-
at least there.
Oh, they're starting to drop.
Yeah.
Now,
Now,
Thank you, really.
I mean-
You were here every night. It was awesome.
I think we're kind of in agreement. We want to narrow it down to 3. Is that kind of what the committee kind of hopes on 3 of them?
so we throw out a name and we all decide.
Well, I mean, we can go through a numerical process if that's what you'd like. On the other hand, if you can come to consensus, you feel you can, then that's something that...
Well, let me ask you something. We've all talked about all the candidates.
Mm-hmm.
What if we were to do our own vote and give you our top 3, and you guys crunch those numbers and tell us where it shakes out?
First of all the votes have to be public because you're in public session, so
We'll
there's...
talk about it afterwards.
Well,
Still public.
could we at least, everybody give 2 names that we would like to see
Doing-
go
and
forward?
doing that, can't we tally them up here?
You absolutely can do that.
We can.
Well, we could do it this way then. It's 3 votes. If our goal is to get to 3, which it sounds like, maybe I should ask that question, or
Yeah.
Peter
so.
should ask that question. Is
No,
it 3?
please. I
Is it
think
3? Does everybody agree that it's 3? 3's the number we're looking for?
Right.
3's the number that we want to go get more information
3's the
on.
number we want to go
Yeah.
visit.
Do you want to just go through this process again and see where it leads you?
Or can we tally it so it's
You
visual?
want me to tally it up there? I can tally it right here.
They've been telling
No,
me
you
it's on
can
there.
tell it there, but you could take our 3.
We'll tell you where it comes out, yeah. And you can-
Okay, so what's your 3?
Okay, I'm going to give you my top 3 that I would like
Yes.
to know more of. Okay. Dr. Andy Keough, Anthony Asa, and Margot Austin.
I've got Azar, Keough, and Thompson.
I have Azar, Thompson, and Austin.
Thompson, Azar, and Himmelberger.
Himmelberger, Keough, and Azar.
Himmelberger, Azar, Austin.
Austin, Keough, Thompson.
Austin, Himmelberger, Keough.
Right back where we were, right?
I don't think
Actually,
so.
we're not.
I didn't
don't
count
think
that
so.
fast, but I think we get top 2.
We definitely have 2 there, don't we?
Boy, you guys are tough.
Have you thought of a co-superintendency?
You have one that ranked a 6, 2 that ranked 5, and 2 that ranked 4. Do you want to know who those
Does that
are?
mean,
Can you just tell us who the
where's the
top
top
1,
three
2,
then?
and,
Oh, is it
Oh.
six
I can
to
tell
five
you who
and
the
five?
top
Yeah.
one
6
is,
to 5 and the 5. That's-
and the others are
Three.
tied.
okay.
all right, so who's the 6, 5, and 5?
So
Wait.
tho-
Can we just, well, we have 5, 5, 4, 4, so if he tells us the 6 and we go around again and do it again.
Do you want to know your top three?
Yeah.
I do,
we don't
yes.
know your top.
Well, it's Margot, Austin.
Wait. Okay, is that what you want, the top 3? Is that
Yeah.
where you want to go?
It's all
Yeah,
public. Let's
that's-
make it all public.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's Anthony Azar, Margot Austin, Andrew Keough.
That's fine.
so,
But it's very
Austin,
tight.
But it's
Azar,
very
and
tight.
Keough.
well, isn't, but
So I
those
think
are the
that's the
top
three we have.
3.
Those are the top 3 in a very tight,
Okay. Well, that
People
means
okay,
they're all
people
good.
okay with that?
Okay.
I really wanted to see Himmelberger on there. So that's, I mean, I'm okay with the top 3, but
I do too. And
I
I'll
really
tell you
think
why,
we should be
'cause he's the only
visiting-
superintendent,
yes.
And you know what?
experienced superintendent. We have.
I voted for Austin, but I was torn between her and Himmelberger.
So if it came down
So if
between,
it came down to it, I would agree with with him being a superintendent, and so, because I was really, it was tough between those 2.
do you want to visit 4?
I personally don't think 4 is manageable. I think we have to get to 3, but I'll do whatever the committee wants.
I think if, I'm not going on the visit, so I don't speak for people that are, but
Those top 3 are okay with me. I agree with you. I like Himmelberger, but I didn't vote for Keough, but I don't disagree with him. I really think that he should be in there. I don't disagree with.
can they visit
But
the
if you look
3?
at-
I mean, he's not out completely if they visit the 3 and then want more,
Well, you may have one of those 3
it's already
Drop out,
taken.
drop out, right,
No.
because, the research suggests that there are some other final interviews fairly soon. And I think there's a candidate there that,
so then I think we should leave it at
already
4
down-
then,
Downstream.
in case.
well, I'm not thinking that we should change it to 4, okay? But just know that the 4th person may pop into the top 3. If
May
we
not
want to
want
discuss
to.
that some more, we
We
can.
should, because if that's the potential, then we should have a 4th that'll.
We
do
shouldn't
it for-
exclude them, we should include them.
Well, anyone in the list
Yeah, we're
could
not
possibly
excluding
become
anybody.
another candidate.
Yeah, none of them are excluded. We're just saying where the visits
Right.
are. So we would have
Sure, but they're still gonna feel like
Sutton,
they weren't,
New Bedford, and Wellesley.
Well, I think we were asked to come to a consensus for the top 3, and I think with due diligence, we did. So, I mean, I'm happy going forward with the top 3. That,
So am I.
that the,
Which
I
is,
mean, we
which is
voted,
what
we
again?
went-
I'm sorry, because Wendy changed hers, so.
Well, I did only because I'm looking at this again, and I'm saying which one has the community builder, and which one has, because this is where our community filled it out, and looking at my decision, I think that the one that I just changed has more of a community, has that more of the community builder aspect.
So what
So
would
I
that-
really don't, you know what,
But
I really,
what would that mean if she changed
That
from?
would change that person. That's how close it is.
Well,
If
wait a minute,
after I
this
heard
is
the
like
top
you-
three, you could
it's
change
not
your
a
vote,
do-over.
you know what I mean?
Right,
Right.
so
Made a
leave it in
decision.
mind, leave it the way it is, it's
Right.
fine. I agree with whatever the
If I
committee
knew the top
agrees with.
three, then I might have changed mine if it
I mean,
didn't get the one I
They're still in the
We have a
mix.
top three, but do we need a fourth?
No,
No.
I don't think so. We kind of.
You read the top three again.
The top three,
Oh, it's up there, sorry.
It's right there.
Austin, Azar, Keo.
In no particular order, just, they're all gonna be visited, those three. And
I'm
nobody
tweeting
ruled
that.
out on the other end.
Wait.
Good job, that was quite the process.
I don't know, I'm not comfortable with the three.
And just a what if. Say what happens if two of them
You
drop
change it,
out.
so let's move on.
What do we do then?
you come back to the
We come
drawing
back.
board.
Do you reach back to number 4?
No,
You
you come
could.
back and have the session
You blow the
again.
whole thing up.
Yeah, but how is number 4 going to feel that we left him
Well,
out?
we
Well,
have
we
two
don't know
number
that he's
fours.
four.
But it's not, didn't you say it was 6, 5, 5,
Would
and,
have been tied with somebody else.
Well, one of the things you want to make sure is that when you have a superintendent, everybody feels that he or she is a match for the district, so that if somebody feels like, yeah, but we didn't go and see so-and-so and I really, really wanted to, that stays with the person, so you know,
I think there's the other piece of this, I don't want to push this too far, but the other piece of the process is extending a courtesy to others who might see things that you don't see. And you want to be careful that you don't rule those attributes out. So you might want to keep that in mind as you look at these folks. But clearly, it's your choice however you choose to go forward.
I mean, do you want, you could do, I'm
2
sensing
and
that
2.
somebody would like to do, say.
But I think it's a point, though, that you have to say that, we have to kind of draw the line. And if we're going to go off in these 3 visits, and if we come back and we're still indecisive, then we can probably come back and look at the names. But I mean, I think we kind of do
but are we
democratic-
realistically going to go on another site visit if we've come back to the table and if we do 2 each day?
Look,
And there's only 3 of us that said we were going, so it really
I
is.
don't think you're going to do
Still-
2 each
but-
day.
But don't forget, we still have an issue that, the score, let me just make sure I was clear on what the score was. It was 6, 5, 5, 4, 4, right?
6.
So we have 3 that clearly are in the first 3 positions. Fourth position is 2 people. So
Now
we
you're back
got
to
a different
5.
issue there. Which
You're
of
back
the,
to 5, right.
right, so if we got 2 4s, and we have to go to a fourth, we have to make a decision. 2 4s, which one do we go see?
Right, because I'm sure other people, whoever voted for the other 4 that was not him, feel strongly about that candidate, or they wouldn't have made it 4 votes as well. So I see what you're saying. I think if we stick with the 3, not ruling any of them out.
I think we have, if you look at the 3, I think they're 3 different candidates. We certainly did not pick 2 that have
Yeah, you're right.
an overlapping quality. See, now you see why you got 6 instead of the 3 to 5 from the screening
No, that's-
committee?
You say that, when you think about the different districts that each of them is working in, they're very diverse.
True.
And after the site visits, they, not being a match, the 2 4s may move up. I mean,
I think at this point, we decided on 3. And we at least go and learn more about those 3.
Sure.
And that's next week.
not
And then-
So,
no.
because that's next week, some of the things that I have to know, if you don't mind. In order to set that up, is I have to have someone on this committee with whom I work to find out what it is that you want to see in the district, and I have to work with the candidate
Mhm.
so that he or she can get, well, there's no she's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
there is.
Yeah, can get set up. So whoever that is, you're going to have to decide.
Who's going out the visit?
What it is you want to see in the district.
Aaron, Bill, and Mike?
But Erin, you go?
Yes.
Yep.
What would you like
On
to
the
see?
3 of you?
I would like to see teachers.
Well,
So
that's,
if we,
At all grade levels, or what?
Sure. I would like
well,
3 sets of teachers.
hold on,
Yeah.
hold on.
You can't.
You're asking, I'm
Okay.
just answering
to be-
frankly what I want
one
to
of the things you have to be careful is to balance the disruption that
Right,
occurs in the
right.
district.
And
when you
there's
go in.
something like called MCAS that's going on.
That's
It
why we're
is.
not going,
Well, we checked the dates. You're going on the 13th.
that's
and
why we're not
14th.
going the week
Very
after.
The
careful.
week after.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because MCAS isn't happening on those days doesn't mean there's not planning going on, believe me.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay? So,
Okay, so I can't see.
I mean, obviously, if you go see,
We have two central
it's
office
two
people
central
and
office
one-
persons and a building principal, so, the building principal, I would want to see parents, I would want to see,
Teachers.
teachers, obviously, some central office, people,
Community,
I'm sorry,
community members,
community members,
Okay.
maybe some students.
yeah,
Sure.
students,
So are we going to see teachers? I
Well,
didn't know where that went.
well, what we do is when we work with the candidates, we ask them to set up an itinerary that includes these groups. And they'll do the best they can with that. But you also have to give them some room to move around, because
Yeah.
those people aren't always available when you want them, and so there's going to be some give and take to the process. Staying how long in each district?
3-4 days.
Okay, we'll put you up.
Actually,
Can
and I
we
also
leave
like,
those who
yeah,
are going to
probably,
visit to make these decisions?
technology.
I
I'd like to probably see
I need to
somebody.
pack, I'm leaving tomorrow, so.
No, I can't, we all got things to do, believe me.
So is this going to be
I know, I have a
Half day?
babysitter, but
a half-day
I
visit?
have
Is
a
that what you're
babysitter,
looking
but I
for?
know we need to get this
Is
done.
it morning and afternoon? Is that the way you're going to do it?
Yeah, a half day do you want to make this decision as a
I think
committee?
we could do a half day and then have an afternoon that we don't see anybody.
Like Friday afternoon.
So
So 2 on Thursday,
who
1 on
would I,
Friday.
who would I work with? You? So I'll be in touch with you just to, and you'll,
Be in touch with Michael.
so it's the 13th and the 14th?
Yeah, next Thursday and
Yeah,
Friday.
next Thursday and Friday.
I would post those as a meeting.
Yep.
Just as a regular meeting.
Are we driving together?
Does that,
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to, maybe I'll have to meet you there.
I'll ride with you if it's $2
And
a
is
mile.
anyone else coming? Because we had spoke of
Well, she's
other.
driving.
oh, have your wallet ready.
Yeah, $2 a mile, Aaron.
Might wanna
Well,
drive.
hey, Santa Claus takes care of your coffee, so you're all set.
Is anybody else going, or is just
We're all
the school
set?
committee?
Well, we
So
had
we're
spoke
gonna
of
work
that
through-
when we
we're
were
gonna
meeting
work
with
through-
you.
I feel very strongly it has to
Nice,
be
saw
the
you walking
committee.
in, say, was that him or
The
not?
public's already done their due diligence.
I knew
in
this,
terms of
thank
the
you.
appointment.
I should have said it's
What about
11
parents?
but I didn't think
That's the
that.
public. It's our decision. We've already been through many layers of the community involvement, and I think at this
Yeah.
point, it's us. That's
Exactly.
what my feeling. If other people want to start speaking, start speaking now.
you also can't march 12 people through a
And
school.
There's
it
only
also-
three of
It also
us.
gives the, I think, the unfair message that a parent has some type of a vote. That people around this table has the votes. So I think at this point, it's up to us. So if other people feel differently, if we have to go to a vote, we can go to a vote if you want. But I think for me, I think it's just us.
I have to agree with you on that.
Is that another painful agreement?
I know that may be counterintuitive to, the idea of transparency, but at this point in time, they've brought it up to us, and it's our, we gotta run with it.
It's a good job. It's not easy, it's not easy work. You did a great job. Very good conversation, and I think you came out in a good place, so kudos to you.
All right. So I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.